Welcome to A Day in the Life inside IHF, where we take you on an immersive journey into the world of the International Humanity Foundation.
Every day is different, but every day is meaningful. Let me show you what it's like.
From teaching eager young minds to managing global teams, we will hear personal stories that brings the heart of IHF to life.
Today's episode, once again with Talk with the CEO, is about leadership and conflict resolution strategies, which you have so much experience dealing with. And of course, I'm this week's host, Athmar, joined by my sister, my darling Salsa Bell. How are you?
I'm great. Can't wait for another masterclass in leadership. We learned so much. We've actually taken so many notes. I'm sure our listeners have as well, but we have just whole Word documents filled with information that we are definitely using in our day-to-day life. So once again, Carol, thank you so much for all the information that you give every single week on this podcast, and I can't wait for another episode.
Absolutely. And of course, we're going to continue our discussion from last week on leadership and how to deal with the conflicts that we've mentioned, especially on our IHF team. Like last week, I took some notes as well, and we touched on some facets of communication that are essential, such as observing, validating emotions, recognizing needs, and making compromises, and of course, trying to find solutions through requests. And can you please just elaborate on that, describing more of those modes of communication that you've mentioned last week? And of course, at what point it be too much that maybe some people, some volunteers or members continue to maybe transgress or maybe not follow the rules and boundaries of IHF? And what can we do in those events?
Sure. Let's see. Well, to kind of to recap the general format, and again, we discussed how it varies greatly. But the general that you can use in each situation, and then go forth with the varying that's required, is the first number one is echoing. And that echoing is because, and this is factual, 80 to 90 something percent of all communication, the listener, certain that they understand correctly, does not understand when dissected. And that's normal. It's not abnormal at all. And that includes very good listeners. And in the global world, that's even more of a challenge, of course. So that echoing back what you hear that person saying about a situation and just the facts. That's it. So first is the echoing. You're not saying what you think about the facts. No, you're not saying what you think the person's done correctly or wrong. No, you're not saying that, oh, they are so right to feel however they feel, so angry. No, you're just echoing back the facts. So first is echoing facts and then echoing the emotion. And then you go to validating. So echoing the facts would be, you are concerned about. I hear you're telling me you are concerned about, or you might say, I want to be sure I'm understanding you correctly. Please correct me if I'm not understanding. What I hear you saying is getting the fact, no judgment, just the fact, and how just doing that so they know you're not being hypocritical, you're being sincere in wanting to understand and not assuming and judging, that in itself calms down the fire, the heavy winds a bit. And then for the emotion part, the validating the emotion, you must first, without any judgment on the emotion, echo it back and then you can validate. So you may have to do the echoing several times as they say, no, that's not what I mean. No, that's not what I mean. And that becomes a problem for those of us that are on the clock. And we have to get fairly skilled at moving that. And that takes practice. So I encourage everyone to practice echoing. And the second, when you're doing the validating the emotions, first you state what you understand the person feeling. And you're really angry about this, or and this is making you feel frustrated. Is what I'm sensing. Is that correct? Or and this is really exhausting for you. Is what I'm hearing. Is that correct? So first, you're doing echoing, just fact, validating emotion, always starting off with non judgment if you even have the emotion correct. Don't go into validating the emotion until you have been told that that is correct, and let them talk about that emotion enough that you can then say, boy, I would sure feel that way if I felt like this was going on, or whatever the case may be. So, again, echoing, validating, and then you get to the need. And this applies to yourself as well as when you're dealing with someone else upset. When you're upset about someone talking to someone, you will want the same thing. You will want to state it and then make sure that they understand and ask them, can I ask you what you heard me say the problem is? Because I'm worried I'm not expressing it correctly. You can ask, it's the same thing applies for yourself when you're upset about a situation as when you are doing this for someone who is upset, or if both parties are upset. And then you come to the needs. So you heard the problem and you heard the emotion. You've validated now the factual problem, the factual emotion as they see it, whether it's correct or not doesn't matter. Now you're asking what their need is. So if it's about me and I'm expressing and very upset, it would be, and this is what I need to have happen. If it's someone else, it is. So, what may I ask you, what is it that I can do for you to help resolve this? Well, given my limited time, but boy, would I love to be able to be helpful if I can. What is it that I could do? That's the need. So you're getting down to a need. And they will then hear themselves if they're unclear on the need, and often that's just very human. A bunch will come spilling out, more than one can handle, and you'll see they're not even clear of the need. That need to just express and vent, you are in itself helping them calm down by whatever's triggered them from the exchange you've done so far. And you are noting together how you might or might not be able to do something specific and helping them to think, oh, wait, what do I want this person to actually do? What is it? Wait, I'm not sure. Well, I would like them to force everyone to, well, I can't force everybody. I don't have that power, but let's try to figure out something I can do. Is there something that would be helpful for me to state or perhaps write down and post? Or you're helping them get to away from the emotional and the sparks flying in all directions down to a specific problem solving action that might solve the problem versus who hurt who and who's blamed who. And it gets down while it also helps to empower them. They are telling you the need. And the same is, again, true for yourself, so that you're isolated and you're starting to think, what is it that I would like from this person? Is it that I just want them to listen and let me vent? Or is there something I would like them to do? In the end, same applies when you're applying it to yourself. And then lastly is the often forgotten but very, very important summarizing. And that's summarizing the requests, often symbiotic, requests. So that person has that request from the need, and what is your need to meet that request if you want to meet it? Or what is the summary of why you're unable to meet it, but here is what you can do or can't do. It clarifies the boundaries And it also offers a wonderful time to say, here's what I've written down. I'll text it back to you because I don't want to forget. This is so important, to write it down so that they can then say, oh gosh, that's not what I mean. I really realize after talking to you and calming down a bit that it's probably not necessary for you to do it. I've actually had that happen quite a few times. But that summarizing, putting it in writing, especially if you have a difficult teammate or whatever it is, if you're offering a solution to a boss in a positive way where the boss is unable to hear or accept any changes, it can be done very helpfully that way, where what is it that would be helpful to you? Since obviously the timing you've expressed is not good for this, and I sure understand, what would be helpful for me to do at this time? That summarizing of the request and the need. It also defines your boundaries, and it's in writing so that they're not doing passive aggressive or aggressive, um, wanting you to do something or more than you want to do, or expecting you to do more than has been actually stated. You've got it in a way that's framed for that person, problem solving for that boss, for that peer, for that relative, in a positive manner that empowers them and subtly in the background protects you in terms of your boundaries, without getting into any kind of a tough or having to even state, well, these are my boundaries. You're not getting into that kind of a stand back. Oh, get ready, put them up. Though sometimes that's needed, as we've talked about. So again, those are the four. And that's a basic to practice in different situations where there's no conflict and you're just listening to your grandmother or the neighbor next door or whatever. It just practice it in different situations and just kind of write down and tick off if you've done the echoing, the validating, the needs, and the summary requests. And you will see how helpful that is. It incorporates a lot of the more minute to situation communication skills you will be learning in IHF and will be going over. This gives kind of a broad division sweep to what we know is needed in each case. Individual cases are, like we were just discussing, politics, pro-Trump, anti-Trump, what's going on in the US, whatever the situation is where it's explosive. You're at the dinner table and suddenly there's opposite points of view, or whatever it is, that has its own boundaries. And then you have what we talked about discussing this week when we were talking last week, and that is the your your 10%. They say 2 to 10% of the population. They used to say 2%, and as they're doing more research, they think it might be as much as 10%, and some are saying more. Where you have sociopaths, psychopaths, your narcissists that feed off of and feel relief from conflict. And for many of them, their mode operandi is to be the calm problem solver while they're creating chaos. For others, it's to be the aggressor or the passive aggressive shy. That's a very common psychopath category that's growing, or your uh, shy demeanor, which is nothing but a cover, a demeanor for horrendous stuff going on. They're finding that in more and more people who have history of raping, etc. So the whatever the demeanor is of the psychopath, sociopath, given the situation, and even with narcissists, which everyone has narcissism, but that feeding off of others' emotions to stay safe, they will prick you with personal comments and personal attacks. So the most important thing is to have kind of a Teflon of not taking anything personally. And what anyone thinks of you, that's their business, not your business. Your business is your relationship with yourself, how you feel comfortable alone with yourself, and comfortable in the quiet of reflecting upon your actions, desires, goals, what brings you joy. Um, that's your business. What other people think of you, that's not your business. It's never going to be accurate and it never works. Listening to people and looking for common threads is helpful, but it never works if that's what you go by. It always has to be an inside job, and then listen carefully. So, with a narcissist, you just have that whatever anyone thinks of me, that tells me more about them. And what is important for me is always trying to grow and be as honest with myself and listen to others as I can. What they think of me, that's their business. I'm not going to waste time on their business. As long as you have that, then their main mode of operandi, of somehow pricking you in the personal and turning something personal, won't take you off the track, even if they do it in a way that's empathetic. So they're agreeing with you and sympathizing with you, and it's getting you more, and you're so wonderful, and they're so horrible to do that to you. Oh my God. And you're getting more and more emotional. That nothing is wrong with emotion. Oh my God. That's the language of love. Nothing's wrong with emotion. But be aware that that feeding off of others' anger, feeding off of others' fear, of those negative emotions that leave you drained and confused, that is the mode of operating. That is the common. It doesn't matter if they have very shy, timid, sweet personalities, the psychopath. It doesn't matter if they have very aggressive, shouting, you better trust me, bullying. It doesn't matter that outer dress or suit they're wearing. That's just the suit they're wearing. What matters is their means of operating. And if someone gets personal in that manner, gossiping about another or in terms of interacting with me, that immediately, having dealt with thousands of people a year, volunteers inside and out, it immediately puts the little alarms on me. The other operating thing for psychopaths and sociopaths and extreme narcissists, knowing everyone is narcissistic to a point, is the idea of how do I word this carefully? I better be careful. Well, it's the idea of making you dependent on them, and that can be through sweet talking. It can be through building you up. It can be through I have the answer for you, or it can be through the fear and putting you down. Inevitably, it will include both, ping ponging back and forth, ping ponging back and forth. So when you are in conflict with someone who uses that operating mode, it's all they know how to do for communication. The best thing to do is to just focus on the problem. Say, and what would you like from me today? And oh gosh, I'm sorry, I am quite selfish. What would you like? I know that's that's my go-to. What would you like from me today? What are you asking of me? Take their wind from them. And either I don't respond at all and say I'm busy if it's just too weird, um, or I ask for the specific. And what is it that you're wanting? I'm sorry, with my boundaries, I'm unable to do that. But I will see if there's someone else that can, and I will send you an email about that. I'm not going to have time to do this conversation again, but I really can appreciate that you need this to be addressed, and I'll see if there's someone that can address it. And it needs to be very specific, because behind that specific need is a deep emptiness where only people outside of them can feel that emptiness. So if that emptiness can be filled even with angry interaction, that's what they need. And it will go on and on and on. So the best thing to do in that kind of conflict is to have very clear what they need from you, whether you can do it or not, what you can do, and put that in writing and stay pleasant. If you get angry or emotional, you're going to be stuck with them. They'll keep coming back for more, and it's exhausting. We can talk about cultures and different responses needed for some particular differences in cultures. Also, when you're dealing with groups that differ, there are it's a large list of areas, though there are many other topics I'd love to talk on also. It's just such a delight every week with both of you. So even though I have to scoot now, I always leave with a big smile. Though you
Spectacular.
can't see it. Ha ha, nanny nap.
Well, we can hear the smile in your voice as well. And that's so interesting. That was actually my next question as well, in terms of how you approach different cultures as well. That'll be for next week as well. But I was just thinking about today. I met up with someone who is, because we're in France, who is French, and the French are notoriously always late to things. And for the French, it's a cultural norm. There's nothing wrong with it. But for example, for us, we were just raised like that. Sometimes it's taken as a slight or a sign of disrespect that someone almost does not respect your time. And I know that sometimes working in large groups with different people who have different understandings of their own cultural norms, and then suddenly having this international community such as IHF, and having to set a standard of what is our concept of timing, what is our concept of being on time, and joining together and being sometimes more direct or more passive. So I would love to hear your take on it as well, because the IHF family is incredibly diverse. So we can perhaps talk about that next week as well.
Oh, great. So the cultures of time. I would love that. And speaking of time, I have to say bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you so much. And
Thank
once
you.
again, we will save some of these discussions for the next couple podcasts, since you've sparked our curiosity. This has been once again an enlightening episode with you, Carol. And I'm sending goodness, love, and gratefulness to all our listeners out there. You'll hear us on the next episode, so stay tuned, and thank you so much.